right, we're here once again live in their own words live. We're doing the second installment of the Lady DJs, my favorite ones. Please, everyone, introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about who you are.
What pulled me in?
All right, Brenda.
Had to unmute myself. Well, I didn't pick DJing. DJing picked me. I was working randomly at DJing at some places, but not really. And then I was also working at a radio station, WBAI, producing radio drama. So I had some experience running a board. A friend of mine who was at the time a drag queen, um, her DJ didn't show up. So she called me. She's like, "Hey, I know that you can do this. Can you come in and run my show and DJ?" And I came in, and the manager really liked what I did, and they hired me. And then another person hired me, and another person hired me. And after about 6 months of continuously working, I said, I guess I'm good at this, and I really enjoy it. And I always hear, I have no musical talent at all. I have no rhythm. I love to dance, but I always hear music in my head. Like I hear music in my head right now. Like there's music going on in my head. If you see me moving, it's because I hear music in my head. And then 6 months in, I said, I'm going to make this a career. So then I did, and cut to 20 years later, I just continuously worked. Of course, there's ups and downs, but this is what I've been doing. I've been very fortunate, thanks to God and to all the people I've worked with and the crowds that would come to hear me. And I started in 1998. I happened to be friends with Danny Krivit, not knowing that he was Danny Krivit. But when I became a DJ, he got me into For the Record. And when I was starting, I was surrounded by Frank Knuckles, Peter Rawhofer, David Morales. They were all in the record pool For the Record. And at the landscape at the time was DJing was really blowing up. Junior Vasquez had just put out his first CD. DJing, it was no longer just in the club scene. It was becoming a mainstream popular thing. It was just when that was starting to launch. When I was working in the clubs, I started out playing house music. I would mix in other things, and I also would work a lot of different gigs. Like I would play a lot of different kinds of music. But when I started out, the club landscape was house, but then about 10, 15 years later, it went into mostly pop. And then I played that, and that was, I think I answered the questions. It was like, how did you start? What made you start? What year?
Yeah,
And what was
that
the
was good.
landscape, right?
You did pretty good, yeah.
I had 3.
Floor. What do you ladies feel is different between lady DJs versus men in terms of, being given certain priority? What are some of the contrasts that you guys have noticed?
They get more money.
More money?
They want to pay them more money. That's been a major fallout, and I've walked away from different things because the club owner or even the promoter felt like they were, and they are, and still are willing to give the men more money than the women.
Thank you.
Yeah, and you every lineup you see is still predominantly male, even though like we're talking about back when we all started, when there were a lot less of us, and to the point that a couple of you were saying, I would have the headphones around my neck and my hand on the record, and people would come up and be like, and I'm like, yeah, and they're like, oh no, I'm looking for the DJ. That's how much it disrupted their logic. But they still didn't understand that I was the DJ with the headphones on my neck and my hand on the record. But outside of that, you still see a predominantly male lineup everywhere, even though now it's very different. They have a million talented women to choose from, and they don't choose them. They still feel more confidence in men. And I mean, even as an actor, it's the same thing. If you guys look at any film, any TV show, you see a whole bunch of men and a chick in every, so it goes across the board. It goes into my mom as a medical professional, that, people that went to school.
I created my own festival called Geometry.
Can I speak? I would like to say that I've never had, every man I ever met who I work with was fabulous. I've never had a job where I was paid more or less than the man. I've never experienced that, and I've worked as a professional DJ for 20 years in New York City. It's how I've made my living. I've worked in bars and nightclubs. I've worked big parties. I did the pier dance. I do private events, and it's never been um, anything about a difference in pay between men and women. And it is a male dominated field, but nobody's keeping women out. And I sometimes, it makes my heart race to hear women bash men, because I think men are fabulous, and I think that men they don't get credit for the good things they do. Like every man I met who DJ was like, oh, that's great. Like when they were like, oh, you're great for a girl, I didn't take that as an insult. I took that as they're like, wow, I don't really see females doing this. Like that's really cool. Like you're cool. Like when somebody said that to me, if you responded to them negatively, they responded to you negatively back. But I was always like, thank you. And then we became friends. And if they were a DJ, they taught me stuff. And if they weren't, they became a fan. I just wanted to say that. So men, I love men.
And that's fine. And they don't
Well,
mean
thank
to,
you.
because they just